can everyone hear me? First of all, this is a standard procedure that we check. If you don't, that's going to be a big problem. But anyway, I would get started. This is Ameda Chan here. I'm the founder of Startup Buffet. We have the pleasure to have Audrey Sommerfeld here. She is really such a character. I actually invited her and been bugging her to do a webinar for us and also talk about her newfound business. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Audrey. Audrey is really have a little bit of a hardship if you know her, and she has worked her way through school, a lot of family heartache, and the political landscape in the corporate America. And I'm sure a lot of you probably have some experience similar to that, myself included. So he has worked, on many large brands like in startups, and also have her fair share of stories, good and bad. So she's actually also part of Startup Buffet and helping to, what we do is we are a video-based resource library for all the entrepreneurs and small businesses out there. Now, if you are an entrepreneur or, small business owner, this is the place that you want to be. And also, listen to what Audrey can teach you something that maybe she can inspire you on. Now, let me just tell you something about Audrey as well. She is actually the founder of Jump Natural. And she had worked on many other large and familiar household brands. Like, I'm sure you heard of Olay, Neutrogena, Mylanta, Herbalife. And, you're familiar with her past, I would say a decade. That's what she's been working on, maybe more than a decade, right? That's what she's working on, a lot of the network marketing brand. Now, I met Audrey a few years ago. In sort of like in a little bit different circumstance, but immediately become friends with her. If you actually know her, she can be friends with everybody, and you can be best friend with her almost immediately. When I first met her, it was a little bit different because I feel something is up with this lady. She's a little bit depressed, a little bit scared, and after getting to know her a little bit, I kind of crack open her mouth and she starts sharing her stories with me, and find out she had a very humble beginning and work against a lot of odds to climb the corporate ladder, and find out one day this corporate ladder broken and this job no longer needs her. But however, because she loves it so much, she was very crushed. Maybe some of you also can relate to a story like that, how corporate America had actually destroyed a lot of people as well. But what I have run into a lot of situations, people run into that situation, is they just keep on the downswing for a very long time. They cannot get up. They cannot dust themselves off and start over again. Now, but Audrey is one of those exceptions. She just picked herself up while she still had tears in her eyes and say, you know what, this is crazy. I have to do this. And guess what? She came out stronger. She got into a very different level now. And I saw that because in the past few years, I saw her transform. That's why when I said to her, I said, hey, you need to do this. You need to get a webinar, get it out, tell people what really happened. Because a lot of people ask for the same thing. So I don't want to take up too much of your time right now because I want to hand this to Audrey and let her get started. And thanks for being here. And let's just get started. She's actually right next to me right now.
Well, Amanda, thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I don't think I'm all that interesting, but I'm glad you do. So you convinced me to do this webinar and to share my story and hopefully inspire others. I also appreciate that you found pictures of me as a little kid and you put them on the PowerPoint. And the whole topic of this today is that I want everybody to think about it takes just one person can make a big difference in your life one person can change it, and you could be that one person for someone else. And what do I mean by that? It just takes one. Well, here I was, junior high and high school, and my teacher, Mr. Richards, was doing this class in social studies, and we were doing a mock trial, and I got to be the judge. And he told me I did such a great job and that I had such a great analytical mind that he told me I should go to college and become a lawyer. And no one in my family's history had ever said the word college before. It was completely floored me. I didn't believe I could go. I didn't believe I was worthy. I didn't believe I was smart enough. And that one teacher said, no, you are. And he was so adamant that I go to college that when I did my SATs, he and my art teacher drove with me 17 miles to come visit my parents in our kitchen and explain to them why I needed to go to college. And with my teacher's help, they convinced my parents to let me go. And my parents agreed I could go to Winona State University, which was a pretty inexpensive school, if I paid half and they paid half. So all of my earnings from my waitressing days went to my first year of college, and my parents paid the other half. And I didn't know where I was going to get the rest of the money, but I went. And it was under the, I told the maid of this story, and you laughed at me. It was under the guise that I could become a teacher or a nurse, because those were the only things open to women at the time, at least in my household. So my first quarter, I tried nursing, and they took the students to a hospital to meet real live nurses. And a man came into the waiting room with his son, a 10-year-old boy with a fish hook in his eye, and I passed out cold. So clearly, I was not nurse material. Winter quarter, I went into teaching, but at the time there was a glut of teachers, and I had to teach special ed, coach football, teach science. It was crazy what I was going to have to do. And I tried my hand at teaching special ed. I volunteered at a home for mentally handicapped adults. I was given 3 men who were in their early 30s, and I had to teach them how to ride a bus. After 3 weeks, I lost my patience, and I didn't do a good job. And so I left that program, and I was depressed, and I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And then I landed in a marketing class and a sociology class, and I fell in love. I loved society and how people change. I loved the marketing and the products and the development and the promotional aspect of it, and I fell in love. So that summer, I went back to that little town of Minnesota, and I worked at the plastic factory where I actually put turkey basters together for a whole summer. And that's where I knew I was going to stay in college, because after sitting there 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, putting a turkey baster together and putting it on a conveyor belt, I was bored out of my mind. So I went back to school. In the fall quarter of my sophomore year, my parents asked how teaching and nursing was coming along. And when I explained I was going to get 2 degrees in 4 years and I could do it and someone would hire me, my family promptly disowned me. They thought that I was insulting them, that I was acting too big for my britches, and they disowned me. And that was probably the first time in my life where I seriously didn't know what I was going to do with myself. I didn't know where I was going to go. I had no home. It was the winter break, and I was lost. And I went and asked for some counseling, and I got a job selling Mary Kay, interestingly enough, and working in a drugstore. And I moved in with some high school friends and made it through a very difficult time. And then it takes just one. And one of my teachers at Winona State said, Audrey, if you want to major in business and sociology, and with your grades and your drive, I think you ought to go to a better school. And with that one teacher, my sociology teacher, they helped me transfer to the University of Minnesota. Unfortunately, then I had no dorm room, and I had to find an apartment and get a job. And so I ended up working full-time as a secretary and going to night school full-time, where I carried a full course load 4 nights a week And I would study till midnight, get up at 6, start all over again. And I did that for a good 2 years. And then I wanted to graduate in 4 years, and it was killing me that I was not going to do that working full time. So I took a job waitressing at a country club and convinced the school to let me carry double the normal course load. So I was going 7, 8 classes a week per day at school. But I got through and I got out and I got a job, which was awesome because it was during a recession and it was really hard to find a job, but I got one. And right around then is when my parents got a divorce and I reconciled with my mother and my brother. But you can imagine that during some very formative years of my life, it was really hard. And there were days I was really hungry. And just like when I was a little kid worrying about where I would have food or money, there was a period of time when I was in college, I had a bag of noodles and a bottle of ketchup, and I had 3 days until payday. That really makes you go, wow, this is as low as it's going to get, and I am never going to be this low again. I used to dream and tell my friends that I'll know I have made it when I can buy strawberries in the middle of winter, because strawberries in Minnesota were so expensive in the winter. And one of my first bosses said, Audrey, that's not a very big goal. Maybe you should dream bigger. And then I met this incredible friend of mine whom I'm still friends with. And now that one person can come in your life for a day or for a minute or for a number of years. But working my first job after college in a company that needed to hire women into the company because they were going to lose their government contracts, you can imagine what that was like, being one of the first 5 women hired into a management position, where it was an engineering firm, and they used to have these Playboy bunny calendars everywhere. And so it's not always a friendly environment. And I started dreaming of grad school. I'd met a few of the management personnel. I helped them win a contract with some, innovative thinking. And so I got to meet all the vice presidents. And I said, how do I get your job? And they all said, well, you need to either get an engineering degree or you need a graduate degree. And I'm like, well, I already have 2 undergrads, so I'm going to go to grad school. So that one, my friend Myra, I love Myra. She's still my friend to this many, many years later, said to me, Audrey, why are you applying to those schools? And she held her hand up above my head and she said, dream here. And she moved her hand down just an inch and she goes, get here. And she said, you're dreaming here. And she put her hand down by my waist and she goes, and you're going to get there. She goes, you have to push, Audrey. You have to believe. You have to know that you're unique and special. And it was because of Myra that I applied to some of the best schools in America. And because of Myra, I got into one. And I didn't believe it myself. I stood there with the acceptance letter to Kellogg, and I was floored. And then I go off to Kellogg, and you can imagine not being born a wealthy person, I didn't have a lot of money, and it was a very expensive school. But I'm like, if I can get in, I can get through. And my family refused to co-sign my student loans, and I found a school administrator, told my life story to, and she said, we're going to find a way. And with her help, she was getting a psychology degree, master's, and she thought my background, which I won't go into a lot of other physical hardship and things, but she said, we're going to get you through. And so she did. And that one person helped me get my student loans at a 12% interest rate, double what the other kids were paying. But she got me through it. And I got a job working part-time at the executive center, where I ended up working the lunch or dinner shift, because if you did that, you got free food. And then I got to know the cooks and chefs, and they liked me. So my free food would turn into some yogurt and fruit and things to take home that were going to get tossed. And so, in grad school, I had those moments of fear and worry and how am I going to pay for this? And it only takes one. And one day I was walking to a grocery store and I was thinking of dropping out. And this kindly elderly lady grabbed my hand and asked me what was wrong. And I told her I wasn't sure I belonged here, and I don't know if I can make it through, and I'm the poorest kid at school. And she held my hand and she said, if you got in, you can make it through. And more importantly, go through it. Even if you don't use it, you'll never lose what you learned from an education. And she proceeded to tell me about her background. And she goes, and here I am selling flowers. Do it. And so it only takes one. And that one person helped me stay in college. So again, very lucky. After grad school, I got some of the jobs I'd always dreamed about. I got to work on oil valet and make women feel beautiful and special, and some bain de soleil. And then I left with some of my people I'd worked with at Procter & Gamble. I went to Johnson & Johnson, where I got to do my first startup. I know it doesn't sound like a startup, but it was Johnson & Johnson with Merck. They wanted to create a joint venture where we took the Merck prescription drugs and tried to get them over the counter. So we worked on Pepcid. It used to be a prescription, and we worked on all the FDAs and clinicals and all that to get it over the counter. And what I mean by a true startup, my first desk was in a hallway. Then I had to share a desk with 3 other people. At one point, we were in a mobile home in the parking lot of one of the J&J buildings. We had no air conditioning, and we had ants, an ant infestation. So it was hysterical. I learned so much. And I think when you're in a startup and you go through those hard times with a fellow employee, you form really strong bonds and friendships. And those are some of the people I call dear friends today, are the ones that went through those very formative years of this joint venture, and some craziness indeed. But it was so much fun because we felt like we were creating the future and a new division. Then a couple of my bosses took me to go to Johnson's Worldwide, where I took over the baby products globally. And for the first time, I got to travel outside the U.S. No one in my family's history had ever done that. I was completely scared out of my wits. But I got my first plane ticket and realized what an amazing world we live in. I've been in some poor countries. I've been in rich countries. And what I've realized is we're all the same. We just want the best for our children. And U.S., we buy Johnson's baby shampoo at Costco in huge amounts. In Thailand, they buy little single servings and they eke them out. But it means we all want the same thing, the best for our family. And it made me completely humble and in awe of the world in which we live and the people who we can help in it. And then I was with J&J, and they moved my family and I out to LA as Neutrogena. They had acquired Neutrogena. And I got to work on pretty much every product there, which is fabulous. I think I've finally used up my stash of products. So if I have any Neutrogena friends listening, can you drop by my house and drop some stuff off? But it was great. I loved working there. A lot of new products. But J&J wanted me to move back east and or go to Texas or rural Virginia. And my family, my stepchildren and my husband love California. So I said, no, I think it's time to move on. And I've been with J&J for 10 years. And I was really wanting to change and move out of that kind of healthcare, because what I felt was that kind of healthcare was managing symptoms, but not really helping people get healthier. So I moved on. First went over to Conagra Grocery Products, where I worked on Hunt's tomatoes. Now that might seem a little weird from beauty care going over to there, but I love to cook, and I thought it would be really fun to make some great recipes and things. And then the company moved within a year and a half to Omaha, so that didn't work out. And then again, it only takes one. And I put out some feelers, and an old boss of mine hired me, and I did some consulting at Obagi, where I worked on professional strength skincare while I paid the light bills and looked for another job. And then a friend of mine, again, it only takes one. And I encourage you, when you look back on your life, think about that one person who helped you got to where you're going. And a friend of mine knew somebody at Herbalife. Mark Hughes had just died, and the company was being put together to be sold. And so they wanted to hire in different departments and teams to run it professionally and set it up for sale. And I went there, and I thought I would only stay there a very short period of time. I thought I'd get some direct sales on my resume and maybe some nutritional supplements, and I would leave. And what I didn't count on is that I fell in love with this channel because for the first time in my life, I got to know the people who used the products that I worked on. You got to hear how they improved their life. You got to hear from them immediately. When you work for a big company like Johnson & Johnson or Neutrogena, you'll have a focus group where you see somebody behind a glass wall and you ask them questions, and it's a very stilted conversation. But at Herbalife, I got to go into people's homes and hear heartfelt what they thought and how well the products helped their life. And it was awesome. During my tenure there, my team and I launched 44 new products. We included a 12 SKU skincare line into 24 countries on the same day. And I really enjoyed working there. I worked in 59 countries with hundreds of people, and I loved it. But during my tenure, talk about hardship, during my tenure at Herbalife, the company was bought, was sold, and went public. I went through 5 CEOs in 5 years, 9 bosses, lots of reorganizations, people I liked being laid off and let go. And at that end of that 5 years, I pretty much had enough, and I said, I'm out of here. And I immediately got hired by one of my bosses to do some consulting for him while I looked for work. And that was wonderful. And then a friend of mine introduced me to a company called Visalis, and they were a startup. And this was a true startup. At J&J and Merck, when it was a startup, I mean, we had lots of money. Maybe we were in a mobile home in the parking lot with ants. But this one was a true startup. You know, they didn't have a lot of money. They didn't have any processes. And so I said, I'm going to see if I have what it takes. Because when you work in a big company, you're really just managing the system. The company kind of runs on its own with or without you, and you're highly replaceable. But in a startup, you can't hide. You can't be a mediocre employee because they can't afford you to be. And so I went to Visalis. They'd had hired the CFO in November, and they hired me in February. And at the time, I like to joke, there wasn't a lot of process. The founders were extremely young, and I used to call myself the frat house mom because I felt like there were days I was managing a fraternity where people came and went as they pleased and did all sorts of jokes on each other and this little tiny staff that we had. So during my tenure there, I like to joke that I watered the plants. I formulated the products. I wrote the copy. I found the manufacturers, and we did whatever it took. And I will tell you that during my tenure there, I loved what I did. We created every product except the ViPack that helped grow that company from $6 million a year in sales to $632 million in sales. And it was a wonderful and wild ride. And then it changed. And then one day I found myself no longer there. And I'll say that was probably one of the hardest exits I've ever had in my life, because I felt like I was indispensable. I thought I was important. I'd been to weddings and funerals and the birth of babies. I knew the field better than anybody. I thought that we were in it together, and I didn't realize I was just an employee. And so when I left that company in October of 2013, I was lost. I lost my purpose. I lost my passion. I lost my confidence. I had no income. And I was scared out of my mind because I didn't see a way out into the future. And I was lucky in that I had friends from the company who had left, friends from manufacturers, friends from the field who would periodically check in on me and see if I was mentally okay. Then I joined a gym because I needed to do something. Looking for work can be exhausting and frightening, and it hurts your ego, and I needed to do something. So I joined a gym, and that's where I met Ameda and my friend Gay and a few other people. And it gave me something to look forward to. And so when I met Ameda and she started, asking me questions, I said, well, you know what? You're right. I have to focus on change and overcoming my fear. And one of the things that I know I did at first was I focused too much on my past, and I wasn't focusing enough on my future. And my ego was bruised. And then I started reading quotes and doing a lot of, self-development, which I think is incredibly important, because I don't think any of us are born, well, some people are, with a strong self-confidence, but I think we all have our insecurities. And so one of my favorite quotes is from the history of Lincoln and his famous failures. And when you look at how he lost jobs, got defeated for the legislature, failed in business, didn't get elected, got defeated, got rejected, he got up again and again and again and said, I know I'm here to do something great in this world. And he did it. And he became one of our most famous presidents in history who helped people achieve the freedom that they deserved. And you think about what he went through. And I said to myself, I was during those moments of self-reflection, if he can do it, so can I. And then I started to read quotes about Steve Jobs, and he may not have been the nicest man to work with from everything I've read, but he was a visionary and he was determined. And he knew that life was going to get hard. And he said it, you can't lose faith. And my husband and my friends said the same thing, and they're like, this is a temporary setback. Don't focus on the past, focus on your future. And so it took me a little while, I'll be honest, to start to heal. And so Ameda asked me, what did I do that made me heal? And then go on to help her get Startup Buffet off the ground and help get Jump Natural off the ground. And what I really did was I said, well, I first have to take care of my physical, my social, my emotional, my financial, and my spiritual needs. So from a financial point of view, the first thing my husband and I did was we said, well, we're cutting back on expenses. Let's rework the budget. Let's see where we can cut back. Let's, really, really get detailed and cut back where we can. And then I started to say yes to any opportunity, because I said, you know what? You never know where it leads, and this could be a heck of a lot of fun. And that, again, is where it takes one. One of my employees reached out to me and said, hey, would you like a small consulting job? My boss needs a little help. Done. One of my former bosses, a lady that I love, and I continue to be friends with, Janice, said, hey, can you help me with a small project? And I said, yes. And it took one. And then Ameda said, hey, can you work with me part-time here at Startup Buffet? And I said, yes. And every time I said yes, I will tell you that the world started to open up to me. And it took me a while to say yes to MLM again. I kept saying no to that. I just wanted a normal job again. I didn't want MLM ever again. But I kept looking for work while I took care of my physical self.
Now, in case, this is Ameda, in case you don't know what MLM stand for, is
multi-level marketing.
Correct. It's multi-level marketing. Is also named as, also known as network marketing. A lot of people had a lot of misconception about this business. Now, I have no association with network marketing, but I know network marketing helped a lot of people. And in fact, Startup Buffet, Facebook, Twitter, it's all about network marketing. We just have different network and market different things. That's all it is. So don't be thinking network marketing is necessarily a bad thing. It's not.
It's direct sales. It's referral marketing. You tell people all the time about a movie you like, but you don't get compensated for it.
Absolutely.
Or a restaurant. So it's a great industry. But I've been burned out on it from Visalis and Herbalife. I was done. So while I was looking for work and doing odds and ends, I took care of my physical self. I rested. I healed. I exercised. I had time to focus on cooking and eating good food and sleeping. And I'll tell you what, I slept a lot more than I thought I would. Emotional, I talked, I grieved, I cried. As I said, I read inspirational quotes and books. I reflected a lot. I wanted to know what my why was again and what motivated me. As I said, I lost my purpose and my passion. And then I taught myself, refuse to give up. And one thing everybody on this phone should know is they've been through a lot too. None of us gets by on an easy day in this world. And so every time you think about you've made it through it in the past, you're going to make it through it again in the future. You're strong. You always get through it. You always do. And then really focusing on the future is your only opportunity. You have to embrace change. You have to focus forward. And that's hard. It's really hard. Social. Meet new friends. I made new friends at the gym. I made some friends networking. I called up old friends that I hadn't had time for in my past. And I really spent some time crafting what is it I want? What is my story? What is my future? I'm not going to rest on my laurels. I'm not going to let anybody take away the best of my life from me. My best is yet to come. And I used that social, that emotional aspect of me to fuel myself forward. And then instead of being angry, I said, I'm going to use it to be grateful. I'm going to reflect on the fact that I have friends and I have family. Today I have clothes to put on and food to eat and warm sunshine on my face. And this is going to pass. It will. And a year from now, and 2 years from now, 3 years from now, you're going to look back and you're not even going to remember the pain. You're going to think about where you are now. And I know that here on earth, we are meant to live the life that we have imagined. And Ameda and I spent a lot of time talking about that. And that was one of the reasons I was so excited she asked me to help with Startup Buffet, because it can help you focus on your future and not your past. And then it's hard to remember you can't change your past. You can only change your future. So how do you get past your past? Forgiveness. And this is not one I've always been good with. If anybody knows me, I'm stubborn. I wouldn't have made it as far in life as I have if I wasn't stubborn. And so I read a lot of these quotes, and these are three that spoke very well to me. One is, when you haven't forgiven those who've hurt you, you turn your back against your future. It's only when you forgive that you start walking forward. That one was hard for me to grasp. Then this one spoke to my heart. Forgiveness doesn't excuse their behavior. Forgiveness prevents their behavior from destroying your heart. And then it made me think we're all the same. We all want the same for our friends and family. We want the best. Maybe they just don't know what they're doing. Maybe they regret. I don't know, but I don't have time to focus on them. I'm going to keep focusing forward. And then a friend of mine sent me this one. Life becomes easier when you learn to accept the apology you never got. And you can actually apply this one to many areas of your life, right? Because we're all human. Some days we do good things. Some days we let people down. Nobody is perfect. So when you focus on forgiveness and you focus on your health and you focus on your purpose and your reason why, and you learn to say, I'm going to do it and believe it anyway, then your future starts to become clear. For me, it was about starting all over again and creating what I knew we had created before. So here's where it only takes one. Again, there's that theme running throughout my life. But a friend of mine reached out to me and said, hey, I have this friend, Josh. He wants to create a shake. He's thinking of starting a multi-level marketing company and he doesn't really know what to do. Can you help him? And I said, yes, but I'm not going there ever again. I'm going to go find a job. I'll just help him because you're a dear friend and he's a dear friend of yours.
Never say never.
Never say never.
Look what she's into now.
And so I helped Josh and we got involved and started creating some products for him. And then I had to reach out for help from other friends in R&D and quality control and ingredient suppliers and regulatory. And then before you knew it, I needed my help from some people who had done graphics and art and video. And before you knew it, it was the universe's way of giving me back everything I loved, which was my purpose, to help people live a better life. And with that, And with the time I took to heal and to nurture myself and to eat well, now I realized I could make it better because you learn from everything you do. You learn from your past, you learn from your successes, you learn from your failures. And this time I could take all of that knowledge and make it right. And so I jumped ahead. Let me go back. I don't know. I'm not always good with technology. What I really want to say is if you're going through a hard time right now, everybody does. Everybody has pain. Everybody has heartache. But no one can make it right and help you get back what you lost except you. And I believe everybody can get back everything and more. And all it takes is belief in yourself and a little bit of help from somebody else. And so that's where I met Ameda. And that's where I'm excited about Startup Buffet on a number of levels. First of all, Ameda and I connected because we both believe in the power of helping others. We both believe that starting your own business and being an entrepreneur is the best thing on the planet because over half of all jobs, 58%, are started by people who have small businesses. The majority of this economic recovery are people who started small businesses. And one thing that Ameda had found when she was trying to start her small business is there's no easy way to go around finding information or advice. If you're like me, I Googled start a business and you get ads for legal services. You get articles about now's the time to do it, but no real assistance, no really easy way to do it. And it takes a lot of time. I also found that if you want to start a business, there's the Chamber of Commerce, but not every Chamber of Commerce really helps you focus on how to start a business versus advertise your business. So it depends on your community and your Chamber of Commerce. So that's kind of hit or miss. And then there is the SBA, the Small Business Association or SCORE. But remember, I grew up in a town of 200 people. There wasn't one of those anywhere within an hour and a half drive of me. If I were in that town in Minnesota, I don't know where I would go to get the information I need to start my own business. And a lot of businesses fail. And I think it's because they start them without understanding, hey, how to do a financial projection, or what kinds of things do I need to do to hire people, or how do I market, or how do I sell? And so what Ameda has created, and that I'm so thrilled to help her with, is this what we call YouTube for small business. If you want to watch a video about finance, legal, marketing, sales, or just need inspiration, there are videos, thousands of videos here. Plus, now we have this webinar feature where we will be featuring other speakers for free or for a fee and more. And there's so many things that Ameda has planned for this site that I'm just honored and thrilled that she invited me in to help her. And I'd say, if anything, it's made me more committed than ever to entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. And I think, with Audrey, her vision is definitely aligned with Startup Buffet. And I told her, I said, at one point, because we've been, brainstorming a lot with Startup Buffet. And one day I said, Audrey, I got really bad news for you, but this is great for everybody else, because let's just open up the webinar for free. And I know she looked at me like, what are you talking about? I thought it cost you money to use the software. I said, yes, but can you imagine if you have a small team, or if you have marketing idea or materials that you want to introduce to your community or our community, you can come here, create a webinar just like this one, and speak to thousands, hundreds of thousands of people for free. So this is truly unprecedented, because all the webinar software out there, you would need to pay, usually somewhere around $100 a month. Now you can use it for free. And I know this is going to be a hit because we already have people, lined up and say, hey, I know for sure I'm going to be one of the speakers, just like Audrey's.
Well, the speaker last week, I watched her. She was an attorney on tax, and now I've hired her to take a look at my taxes because I didn't realize before the webinar that I could take some deductions. So it's a great vehicle to share your small business or your ideas, or even host an opportunity call. So
absolutely.
And then Ameda said, what else do you do? Because Ameda pushes for multiple streams of income. So she's a big believer in that. So this one's really a hobby, but I created Audrey's Artwear. And what I had learned during my time off was that you need a hobby. You need some me time. And having been a busy stepmom with kids and school and all that, this one's really hard and really hard for women. But what I do is once to twice a month, I go lock myself in my little painting room and I paint. And in that time period, I recharge my batteries, I center myself, and I'm finding that I'm a better person for my family and for my company and for Ameda and everybody else that I have as friends and family and associates. So these are just some of the things I've painted. And the more I paint, the more I enjoy it. And the more I enjoy it, the better I get. And the better I get, the more confident I become. So I encourage you, if it's cooking, if it's reading, if it's going for a walk, if it's taking a hot bubble bath, if it's reading a book, if it's just watching a movie, find one hobby that takes you into another realm, that recharges your batteries. Because when you do, you'll be a better person. And here's another example of it takes one. I had this great coach once that we had hired in one of the companies I worked for. And he said, what do you do to relax? What do you do to recharge your batteries? And I said, Jim, I can't just sleep. I'm not a lay around the sofa guy. And he goes, Audrey, that's not what I'm talking about. What energizes you? What centers you? What calms you? And I found it was painting. And this hit me when my friend Mary was dying. I needed an outlet as well to put my grief into, so that when I saw her again, I was happy. And painting did that for me. So I encourage you to find that one hobby that recenters you and gets you focused. Because then we created Jump Natural. So I'm a co-founder of this company. My partner, Josh, convinced me and the team that I brought with me that we could create something unique and wonderful and recapture the things that I felt were so critically important, the ability to make a difference in the world, one person at a time. So we created Jump Natural to have products and opportunity that are fun, simple, and meaningful. And the key way to know it's the right company for you, or to know you're in the right steps moving forward, is to share your values. Now, Ameda and I share the same values, the same work ethic, and the same appreciation for helping others. And with Jump, we really said together as a team, what is it we want us to stand for? Because when you know what you stand for, you're unstoppable. So we created our values, and we hire and we fire by them, and we live by them, and we challenge each other every day. And is that really authentic? Are we transparent? And I think if anybody who's on the line knows me, they know, if anything else, I'm transparent. And I believe everybody should be. Our products were designed to fix problems with our health, common issues that most people have about getting good nutrition, getting good health. We aren't eating right, we know it. And so we created these products to be affordable, great tasting, and all natural. And we started the company with 8, which is pretty phenomenal. We have a vegan shake that tastes amazing. It's creamy and delicious. We have a whey-based protein shake, has a different sweetener system. It's not artificial, it's natural, but it helps you burn fat and have good sustained energy for athletic performance. And the other supplements that fill nutritional gaps of fruits and vegetables, fiber, energy, you name it, we have it, and more in development. And then we have educational tools to show you how you can use these products to save money and get better nutrition than common healthy fast to prepare meals or take out meals. So we're really trying to help people. And then our compensation plan is I think the best, because we learned a lot at our prior companies about what we can do to make it a team and make it fun and have it be rewarding. And so I like to say that this photo of me is on green screen because it means there's anything is possible. When you film on green screen, they can put anything behind you. But I just love this because this was, again, friends who came together who supported me and whom I'm forever grateful for. And it only takes one. And you could be that one person to somebody else. So take a look. If you're looking for a part-time income or to supplement your income, take a look at Jump Natural. We have the best compensation plan at all levels. No bonus that turns into a payment. You drop down a rank, you still get a bonus. Emotional confidence, we help you create your freedom. Physical, we give you the nutrition you need affordably. Spiritual, we help encourage you to find your why and your purpose. And social, you meet new people, you experience new things, you have fun. So I'd like to say that everything in my past life, the hardships, the struggles, the fear of having no income, the fear of having no food, the fear of failure, the fear of what people think of me has all brought me to the point where, you know, you leave something you love and now you realize you can have something even better. And it's because of that one person in all of those different areas of my life who said, you can do it. You have what it takes, that one person. And so my goal is to help be that one person for someone else. Be it startup buffet with Ameda and giving somebody the education and the tools they need to follow their dream, or be it with Jump Natural to get their health back, or Jump Natural to get some extra income. I really feel like my life is coming full circle, and the best is yet to be, and my goal is to be that one to somebody else. So here's how to connect with me. And Ameda, I think I feel so weird talking about myself for almost an hour.
Well, I'm sure, especially, people who get to know you really would, love, to hear your story and, actually get to know the truth about it. But what I want to add about the future is so many people has driving through life only looking at the rearview mirror. And that's why the vision is very, very narrow and very, very limited. And you hear from those people like, oh, I would have, I should have, I could have. Those are the words that came out from their mouth because they only look at the rearview mirror. And since they're so focused on the rearview mirror, they forgot to focus on what is in front of them. And it's the road ahead, it's the future. That's what it counts. Like you said, we cannot change the past. We can only create the future. So the loser always live in the past. Okay. And they would say, I used to be, I used to have, my ex did this to me, blah, blah, blah. Okay. But on the other hand, the winners transform themselves to the future because they know you cannot change the past. You can create your own future. That's what it is all about. And, your whole life is about somebody, that one person that you talk about, that one person had helped you get through that one hurdle of your life, during that time of your life. And you ask yourself, are you that one person for someone else? You may be. Sometimes you just didn't know. If you know that one person that changed your life, go tell that person. Yeah, I think that's very important. Don't you think, Audrey?
It is. Go tell that person, because I know when I was in grad school, my financial counselor who helped me said, Audrey, have you ever thanked that one teacher, Mr. Richards, for putting that dream in your head that you could be anything you wanted to be? You could even be a judge or an attorney. And she was right. And I wrote him a letter. And I know that it meant something to him.
Absolutely.
And I have thanked my friend Myra at numerous occasions and told her I love her because she inspired me to be more than I thought I could be. And to all my old bosses that during my period of sadness reached out to me and gave me projects or just took me to lunch that one person, it doesn't have to be much, but one person can truly change your attitude and change how you feel about yourself.
And possibly change your life.
And they did. My life, I look back on each decision point in my life, and had Mr. Richards not done what he did, my life would be very different than it is today. Had that Myra not convinced me to apply to a great grad school, my life would be very different today. Had my financial counselor not helped me, my life would be very different today. Had my former bosses not taken me with them to other companies, my life would be very, very different today. And again, it's about it's about saying yes. It's about forgive. And I love what you typed, Amita, give. And multiple streams of income rocks. Those are what you wrote. But yeah, be that one person. And if you have had that one person in your life, no matter how big nor small, thank them. Because who often gets to hear thank you enough?
Never enough. Never enough. And I think the good news is you can be that one person for someone else if you choose to be. Sometimes you just didn't know. You don't even know that you did. But if you have that mindset, I think you start paying more attention to other people. And the more people you can help, that's the whole premise too. It's the more people you can help,
the richer your life, I think.
I absolutely think if you want to make a million, think of ways to help millions of people. That's how it works. So.
All right. Well, with that, thank you, everybody, for listening in. You can connect me at audrey@jumpnatural.com. You can find my Facebook fan page. It's Audrey S. Sommerfeld. And thank you for listening in. Go be that one. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Talk to you next time.
Hey, Buffeteers, don't forget to subscribe, share, review, and give us some 5 stars love. And as always, Startup Buffet, your business, your way. Get all the extras, downloads, and videos mentioned in this episode at startupbuffet.com/.